Evil is not always loud. It does not always shout or strike. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, behind soft words, behind familiar faces. In Stoic philosophy, we are not taught to fear evil, but to recognize it. Not to panic, but to prepare. Because when toxic people realize that you see through them, they shift, they adjust, they strike differently. This video is not about paranoia. It is about clarity. It is about strength. It is about learning how to stand firm in a world where deception wears many faces. We will reveal 7 tactics toxic people use once they know you've uncovered their true nature. These are not guesses. These are patterns, repeated, refined, and hidden behind masks. But once you know what to look for, you will never be the same. Listen closely. Protect your energy. Defend your mind. And most importantly, never lose your inner peace. 1. They give you strange vibrations. Not every threat announces itself with words. Sometimes, danger arrives in silence, in glances that linger too long, in smiles that feel hollow, in conversations that leave you unsettled for reasons you can't quite name. This is not imagination. It is instinct. It is the first signal that something beneath the surface is shifting. When a toxic person realizes that you've seen through them, their energy changes. Their presence, once masked by politeness or charm, begins to carry weight, a kind of pressure that's hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. You feel it in the room before they speak. You sense it in the pause before they answer. You feel watched, measured, analyzed. And if you try to brush it off, if you try to rationalize it away, you begin to silence the very wisdom designed to protect you. Stoic philosophy teaches us to remain calm and unshaken, but not to be blind. Perception is a tool, an extension of reason, and the Stoic man sharpens it through discipline and awareness. These strange vibrations are not noise. They are information. When someone's energy shifts from openness to hostility, cloaked in silence, it's a sign they are calculating. They are no longer engaging with you as a person, but as a problem, a threat, an obstacle to their control. You may notice they begin to act in extremes, overly kind, overly curious, or strangely distant. It's not the behavior itself, but the intention behind it that matters. They are testing boundaries, searching for a crack. And every interaction becomes a subtle battle of presence and influence. You must not react with emotion. That's what they want. They thrive on confusion, on guilt, on drawing you into their mental arena where they control the rules. Instead, you respond with stillness. You observe, you detach, you let their unease bounce off your calm, because in doing so, you make their manipulation visible even to them. And once it is visible, it loses its power. These vibrations, this shift in energy, is your first and greatest warning. It tells you that they have noticed your strength, they have felt your distance, and now they are preparing to reassert control. But the Stoic man does not retreat. He does not confront recklessly either. He simply maintains his position unmoved, aware, and deliberate. You do not owe them your attention. You do not owe them access to your thoughts or your peace. You owe yourself clarity, strength, and control over your inner world. Trust what you feel when the room shifts. Trust the heaviness in your chest. It is not fear. It is the wisdom of survival. And when they try to invade your space with strange behavior, Remember, the calmer you are, the more their chaos reveals itself. Let their energy unravel. Let them expose their intent. And while they try to control the narrative, you control what matters most: your focus, your boundaries, and your unshakable peace. This is not paranoia. This is preparation. This is the discipline of presence. And in a world full of masked intentions, it is your greatest defense. 2. They come with a new reputation. When a toxic person realizes that their mask has slipped, that you have seen through the charm, the manipulation, the subtle games, they do not retreat with shame. They do not reflect in silence and seek to make amends. Instead, they begin a quiet reconstruction, not of their character, but of their image. They craft a new version of themselves, designed not to change, but to deceive. This is not transformation born from truth. It is strategy born from exposure. They know that once trust is broken, words alone are not enough. So they go further. They redesign the story. They become the misunderstood one, the one who was unfairly judged, the one who has grown beyond the person you once knew. They speak in tones laced with humility. They confess to minor wrongs, carefully chosen, framed in a way that invites sympathy but avoids real accountability. They may say, "I wasn't in a good place back then," or "I've been working on myself." But what they do not say, the harm they inflicted, the truth you confronted, those things remain buried, avoided, twisted. They may even surround themselves with others who haven't seen what you've seen, who still believe the facade, and use them as proof that they are now different. This is not evolution. It is camouflage. It is a well-rehearsed performance aimed at convincing you to lower your guard, to question your judgment, to doubt the strength of your initial clarity. A Stoic man does not forget what his soul felt in silence. He does not abandon the truth just because the liar learned to speak in softer tones. In Stoic thought, character is not rebuilt through speeches. It is revealed in patterns, in discipline, in years of quiet, consistent action. Real change does not arrive with fanfare. It is slow. It is humble. And most of all, it does not demand to be noticed. But the toxic person, when unmasked, is driven by the fear of losing control. They understand that perception is power, so they try to control how you see them, and in doing so, they hope to rewrite not only their story but yours. They want you to believe that the pain you felt was an illusion, that your intuition was wrong, that your boundaries were too harsh. This is not healing. This is gaslighting wrapped in civility. The Stoic watches. He does not react. He does not argue. He listens with stillness and sees beyond the surface. He understands that a man who has truly changed does not need to convince you. He simply walks a new path, and time confirms it. The Stoic does not rush to forgive, simply to keep peace. He does not invite a threat back into his life, because the threat now speaks gently. He measures the weight of the past, the consistency of the present, and the integrity of the future before he acts. This is not bitterness. This is discipline. If you allow yourself to believe the performance too soon, you open the gate to the same harm, repackaged in new language. Do not trade clarity for comfort. Do not exchange strength for sentiment. Your wisdom was earned. Your awareness cost you peace. Protect it. Toxic people change their appearance, but rarely their intent. And if you watch closely, the cracks will always show. The timing of their transformation only after they were exposed is not coincidence. It is desperation. Stand firm. Let them talk. Let them tell their new story. But you trust what you saw. Trust what you felt. And remember this: a man who guards his peace with silence, with strength, and with unwavering clarity cannot be fooled twice. 3. They only come around when they need something. At first, it may seem like they care, like they're checking in, offering support, showing interest in your life. But over time, a pattern begins to emerge, a pattern that reveals their true motive. They're not there for you. They're there for themselves. Their presence is not an act of loyalty. It's a tactic. They vanish in your hard times, when you are in need, when your soul is exhausted and your hands are empty. But as soon as you rise, as soon as your energy returns, your success builds, your peace grows, they reappear, not to celebrate you, not to support you, but to feed off what you've built, to take, to drain, to manipulate once again. This is the calling card of a toxic person. They only engage when there's something in it for them. Stoic philosophy reminds us that friendship is not based on convenience, but on virtue. It is measured not by proximity, but by presence in both struggle and strength. A true friend walks beside you in silence when the world turns away. A toxic person disappears when you can no longer serve their interests, and returns only when they see value in your light. This type of person sees people as stepping stones, not souls. They calculate every interaction. They remember what you've done for them, not with gratitude, but with expectation. And when they return, it is never random. It is rehearsed. They come with kind words, false humility, and well-timed concern. But beneath that surface lies the same motive gain. They want something. Maybe it's your time, maybe your help, maybe your silence, but it's never your well-being. And the moment they get what they came for, they vanish again, leaving you with questions and emptiness. This cycle continues until you stop it. And to stop it, you must no longer respond to their rhythm. You must move to your own. The Stoic man does not allow others to dictate his emotional climate. He does not allow the inconsistent to have consistent access to his life. He observes, without bitterness. He disengages, without drama, because he understands true power is in control, not in confrontation. You do not need to explain why you pulled away. You do not need to prove that their absence during your lowest moments was felt. You simply adjust your distance and let time confirm what your instincts already told you. When they come back again, speaking of change, of misunderstanding, of wanting to reconnect, remember the silence they offered when you needed their voice. Remember how easily they forgot you when there was nothing left to take. And then ask yourself, do I want this energy near me again? Or have I finally seen enough to walk away for good? The Stoic answer is quiet and firm. Do not open doors to those who only knock when they are empty. Do not keep pouring into people who never once offered you water when you were dry. Their pattern is their truth. And once you know it, you owe it to yourself to honor it. Your strength was never in their hands. It was always in your ability to choose who you allow close. And now, you choose peace. You choose boundaries. You choose yourself. Let them come. Let them knock. But you remain still, unmoved, and unmoved by need, masked as love. Because the Stoic man knows that not everyone who returns deserves to be welcomed. 4. They lie to cover up past lies. When a toxic person is exposed, when the light of truth begins to dissolve the image they carefully constructed, they do not admit, apologize, or correct. They calculate, they scramble to contain the damage, not by repairing the past, but by burying it under new layers of deceit. One lie becomes two, two becomes four, and suddenly you find yourself standing in a maze of contradictions, half-truths, and shifting explanations that never quite add up. This is not accidental. This is a method. It is the tactic of someone who fears being seen for who they truly are. Someone who would rather rewrite the entire story than take responsibility for a single act. And the deeper you dig for clarity, the deeper they retreat into falsehood. Stoic philosophy teaches us that the truth, though often difficult, is always liberating. It requires courage, humility, and strength to face one's actions head-on. But the liar, especially the seasoned manipulator, lacks this strength. Their entire existence depends on the ability to shape perception, and when their first lie begins to crumble, they feel cornered, exposed, vulnerable. So they do what they've always done. They invent, they fabricate new details, change old timelines, blame circumstances, or shift guilt onto others. They might even accuse you of remembering wrong, of misunderstanding, of overreacting, all to create just enough doubt in your mind that you begin to question yourself instead of them. This is not just deception, it's psychological warfare. But the Stoic man is not shaken by confusion. He understands that chaos is the first line of defense for a dishonest soul. The more unclear things become, the more they can hide. So he steps back. He watches, he listens, and he resists the urge to chase every inconsistency, because the need to explain everything is a trap. It draws you into their world, into their logic, into their control. The Stoic chooses a different response. He remembers. He holds the truth quietly, confidently, and lets time reveal the rest. When someone lies to cover up past lies, what they fear most is not confrontation. It's calm awareness. It's the man who doesn't argue, but simply withdraws his trust, who doesn't lash out, but quietly adjusts the boundary. This tactic, lying upon lies, is designed to wear you down. It seeks to exhaust your certainty, to make you question the reality you once felt so strongly. And if you're not grounded, if you lack stillness, you may find yourself in that trap, trying to prove something that was already proven, trying to get honesty from someone who only speaks in defense. This is where you must return to discipline, to clarity, to what you know. Do not try to rescue the truth through their language. Let their web of lies collapse under its own weight, because it always does. Lies cannot sustain themselves forever. They require too much energy, too much control, too much attention, and eventually, the one who weaves them slips. They contradict themselves. They forget what they said. They expose the very truth they were trying to erase. The Stoic watches this unfold with quiet resolve. He does not gloat. He does not strike. He simply walks forward, eyes open, heart guarded, because he knows that a man who lies when caught is not trying to fix what was broken. He's trying to protect his illusion. And there is no future with illusion. Only delay, only damage. The Stoic does not stay in that place. He does not keep himself available for another version of the same lie. He learns, he moves on, and in doing so, he reclaims his time. his clarity, and his peace. Let the liar stay tangled in their fiction. You, however, stay anchored in truth, not to argue, not to convince, but to be free. 5. They try to make you feel stupid. When a toxic person realizes you've seen through their manipulation, their lies, and their carefully curated persona, they often shift into a more subtle but deeply damaging tactic: psychological erosion. They stop trying to openly convince you of their version of reality, and instead start attacking your ability to perceive reality at all. They make you feel like your thoughts are flawed, your reactions are excessive, your memory is unreliable. It doesn't come as one grand insult, but as a steady drip of condescending remarks, backhanded compliments, and phrases that mask insult as concern. You're overthinking again. You always take things the wrong way. You just don't get it. These phrases are not meant to clarify or resolve. They are meant to weaken, to create doubt. And doubt, once planted, becomes a tool they use to steer your mind back under their influence. This is not clumsiness. This is not poor communication. It is deliberate. They want to reposition themselves as the authority, not just over the situation, but over your interpretation of the situation. The more you doubt your intelligence, your memory, your instincts, the more power they regain without ever having to raise their voice. It's one of the most dangerous games they play, because when you start believing that you cannot trust your own thoughts, you become reliant on theirs. That is the trap, and it is a slow, quiet one. You begin to apologize more. You begin to defer more. You ask for validation on things you once knew with certainty, and little by little, your self-trust dissolves. But the Stoic man recognizes this manipulation for what it is. He does not argue with those who mock his awareness. He does not chase understanding from someone who uses understanding as a weapon. He knows that confidence is not loud, and strength does not need permission to exist. He watches the pattern. He listens to the tone, and then he makes the most powerful move of all. He detaches, not with rage, but with reason, not with noise, but with silence. Because when someone tries to make you feel stupid, what they are truly saying is this: I feel threatened by your clarity, and I cannot control you unless I destroy it. The Stoic does not allow that. He guards his mind like a fortress. He questions the questioner. He challenges the insult, not with debate, but with distance, because he knows his value. He knows that wisdom is not measured by others' approval, but by the discipline to remain calm in the face of attack. When you are made to feel small, when your thoughts are treated as inferior, remind yourself, this is not feedback. It is strategy. It is not about truth. It is about control. And control that is built on tearing others down is always rooted in fear. The Stoic man does not bend to fear. He stands in truth. Even if his voice shakes, even if he stands alone, he knows that intelligence is not arrogance. It is the courage to trust what you see. Even when others try to blind you, let them try. Let them speak. But you speak less, see more, and stand firm in your mind. Because the man who cannot be made to doubt himself is the one who can never truly be controlled. 6. They try to manipulate you. When a toxic person realizes that you've seen through the mask, when your awareness makes their tactics ineffective, and your silence becomes louder than their excuses, they do not walk away in defeat. Instead, They reach for what they consider their most effective weapon: manipulation. This is the phase where their behavior becomes more subtle, more calculated, more emotionally charged. They may no longer try to control you directly, but they will attempt to control how you feel about yourself, about them, and about the situation. This is not random. This is intentional. It is a quiet war for influence, designed to make you question your judgment, doubt your decisions, and ultimately hand your power back to them without realizing it. Manipulation is not always aggressive. Sometimes it wears a smile. It arrives in the form of guilt, or obligation, or emotional dependency. They might say things like, "You're the only one who understands me," or, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." They may act helpless, or wounded, or deeply remorseful, just enough to pull at your empathy and disrupt your clarity. Their goal is to blur the boundary between concern and control, between helping and handling. They want you off balance, emotionally compromised, and questioning whether you're being too harsh. But the Stoic man does not negotiate with emotional confusion. He sees through the act. He knows that someone who respects you does not need to manipulate you, and someone who manipulates you does not truly respect you. Manipulators are highly skilled at reading people. They know what you care about. They know how to speak in a way that stirs your protective instincts. They may remind you of shared history, of intimate moments, of times when you leaned on them. But these reminders are not expressions of love. They are leverage. They want to awaken the emotional ties so that logic fades, so that your inner boundaries soften. But the Stoic knows that true love, true loyalty, does not require manipulation. It does not use memory as a weapon, and it never tries to regain access through emotional coercion. You may find them becoming more dramatic, more reactive, or even more affectionate. All of this is theater, and the moment they sense you are watching without reacting, they escalate. They accuse you of being cold, distant, changed. But what they fear is not your coldness, it is your clarity. They fear your refusal to be swayed, your calm refusal to give them the control they once had. And that fear fuels their last effort to convince you that strength is cruelty, that self-respect is selfishness, that distance is betrayal. But the Stoic man does not confuse emotional manipulation with truth. He remains anchored. He does not retaliate. He does not explain. He simply refuses to surrender his mind, because manipulation only works on those who need validation from the manipulator. When you no longer seek their approval, their entire strategy collapses. When you no longer feel the need to comfort their discomfort, to soften your truth, or to explain your boundaries, you become untouchable. And that is what the manipulator cannot stand: a person who sees through the tactic and still chooses peace, not by force, not by anger, but by detachment, calm, deliberate, unshakable detachment. So when you recognize manipulation, do not fight it. Do not try to convince them of your reasons. Simply hold your ground. Let your actions speak. Let your silence be your answer. Because a man who is deeply rooted in his own truth cannot be moved by guilt, flattery, or falsification. He does not respond to pressure. He responds to principle. And that principle is simple: you do not control me. You do not define me. And you will never again have the power to bend my will through emotion. That is the mark of true strength, not just the ability to walk away, but the ability to do so without looking back, not because you don't feel, but because you finally see. 7. They act like they don't know what they are. When a toxic person is exposed, when their mask slips, and the truth of their behavior comes to light, they rarely meet that truth with integrity. Instead, they reach for one of the most manipulative tools in their arsenal: denial, by way of feigned ignorance. They pretend they don't understand what they've done. They act surprised, even offended, that you would suggest they've caused harm. They say things like, "I didn't realize it affected you," or "That's not what I meant," or "You should have told me." These statements are not invitations for resolution, they are weapons designed to reverse the pressure. Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about what they did, it's about how you failed to explain it properly, how you misunderstood them, how your expectations were unclear. And in one calculated breath, the spotlight of accountability is shifted back onto you. This is not confusion. It is strategy. It is the deliberate act of someone who knows exactly what they did, but refuses to carry the weight of responsibility, because to admit they knew what they were doing means to admit intent, and intent reveals character. The Stoic man sees this clearly. He understands that those who are truly unaware of the harm they cause respond with humility and curiosity. They listen. They learn. They express genuine remorse. But the one who acts lost when confronted is not searching for truth. They are searching for escape, for a way to invalidate your reality without ever having to defend their own. They want you to feel like the aggressor, like the accuser, like the one creating conflict out of nothing. They want to paint your clarity as cruelty, your assertiveness as overreaction. But a man rooted in Stoic discipline does not let this confuse him. He does not soften his stance to protect someone else's comfort. He knows that pretending not to understand is a coward's defense. It is the shield of someone who values their image more than your well-being. And he knows better than to waste time trying to teach truth to someone committed to avoiding it. When a person consistently acts unaware of their impact, even after being told directly, even after watching the damage unfold, they are not innocent. They are unwilling. And that unwillingness is all you need to know. This tactic is especially dangerous because it is subtle. It does not shout. It whispers. It makes you second-guess your memory. It makes you feel like the burden of proof rests entirely on you. But the Stoic does not chase validation. He does not relive the past, trying to convince someone who has already decided not to see. Instead, he lets their response speak for itself. He notes the pattern. He sees the delay in growth. He listens to the excuses. And then he withdraws, not with malice, but with clarity, because continuing to engage with someone who refuses to take ownership is not strength, it is self-betrayal. Remember this: no one forgets how they made you feel if they truly cared. No one repeats the same harm and then acts surprised when you speak up. And no one who values truth hides behind confusion. You are not cruel for expecting accountability. You are not cold for refusing to be gaslit. You are not arrogant for trusting what your soul has felt over and over again. You are disciplined. You are aware. And you are done explaining reality to those who benefit from denying it. Let them act confused. Let them play innocent. But you remain steady, remain clear. And remember, a man who knows what he stands for cannot be shaken by someone who pretends not to know who they are. You now understand the 7 tactics toxic people use when they know you've seen through them. These are not just behaviors, they are signals. Warnings. Reminders that not every smiling face carries good intentions. But with awareness comes power, and with power comes the responsibility to protect your peace, your energy, and your mind. The Stoic path does not demand that you fight every battle or prove every truth. It calls you to rise above it, to stand firm without rage, to walk away without fear, and to let your silence speak where words would be wasted. True strength is not found in domination or reaction. It is found in mastery over the self, in knowing who you are, what you allow, and what you walk away from without explanation. Let the manipulative fade. Let the dishonest talk. You stay still. You stay sharp. You protect the life you are building by refusing to carry the weight of those who have already shown you their nature. And as you move forward, do so with clarity, strength, and calm, because the man who sees clearly, who speaks little, and who trusts his own judgment cannot be broken, controlled, or deceived. He is free, he is grounded, and he becomes the one thing a toxic person cannot touch, untouchable